If a stew in a casserole were to have a child and it turns out that baby's birth parents were actually a pig and a duck, you'd get cassoulet, aka the French pork and bean dish that spans back to medieval times. So for the past 4 or 5 years, I would say, I make this dish maybe 1 or 2 times a winter, and every year it gets a little better and a little better. But don't take my word for it, it's my fiance's like favorite dish. So last year, I was in Bordeaux and we ate dinner at this amazing restaurant called La Tupina. And as it turns out, the chef there is actually famous for his cassoulet. I can't even begin to explain this experience, man. You walk down a dimly lit hallway and it opens up to this rustic living room with a display of incredible beef, fresh seasonal veggies, and a massive black hearth fitted with cast iron pans, cauldrons, old world cooking utensils, the works. Think rustic French grandma or countryside chateau, but with the food and service of an elite restaurant. This is exactly the kind of food that I want to eat and embodies the reason why I fell in love with cooking. Humble, classic, well-made food with an artisan flair. Gorgeous. Anyways, we sat down to a complimentary basket of radish and butter, which if you've never tried it, amazing combo. I ordered the Côte de Boeuf for 2, which they definitely made fun of me behind my back for, just like as an American, but it's fine. We're gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. And of course, my fiance Jess ordered the cassoulet. And of course, since we were in Bordeaux, we had to get that big-bodied, teeth-staining red wine. Now, the Bordelais sauce on my aged Côte de Boeuf was something that I still dream about. But the cassoulet was just, it was like the beans were little cream bombs. Like, holy shit. I don't think I've ever had beans like that. I don't think I ever will have beans like that again in my life. But, you know, pray for me, hopefully one day. So we ended the night with a little complimentary cannelé, amazing Bordeaux treat, and a handful of skinny French cigarettes. Because, well, when in France. But honestly, I was just crazy nervous because this was the moment that my girlfriend would become my fiance. So I think it's a pretty decent excuse, but don't do drugs. Bean talk. These are tarbay beans here that I have soaked overnight. You can see how nice and plump and white they are. This is one of the classic beans used in cassoulet in France. Kind of hard to come by in American supermarkets, but you can order it online. They're very creamy. They're a great size. If you can't get them, I've also done this with cannellini beans. White navy beans could work too. Any like white beans gonna work, but if you wanna make this the authentic way, right? We're gonna use tarbay beans. Oh, and check this out. This is why you soak them. This is an unsoaked bean, and this is a soaked bean. You can see how much larger that is. That's just gonna help them cook a little more evenly and quicker. But yeah, you don't have to soak them per se, but I recommend it. Remember, though there are lots of ingredients in these beans, the cooking process could not be easier. A couple of things that I just wanted to touch on. We will be using 2 cuts of pork in these here beans. While a pig trotter is most classically used, I like to make cassoulet beans with a smoked ham hock. The smoky flavor is just prevalent enough to make the final dish interesting, but not overpower it. Plus, the skin and the bones will make the cooking liquid just as viscous as using a trotter because it too is packed with loads of collagen. Second, while you'll often see pork skin or rind, as we call it here in the States, in cassoulet, I like to use pork belly with the skin on. Because who's gonna complain about an extra fatty, succulent piece of pork in their food? Skin is good. Skin plus belly meat is better. Into a big pot on medium heat, all the beans. Half an onion, 3 tomatoes, sliced in half, chunk of carrot, few garlic cloves. We're gonna go in with our herb sachet, which is gonna be our thyme, parsley, and bay leaf. The smoked ham hock, the pork belly, tomato paste, juniper berries, clove, black pea corn, a little red wine vinegar, chicken stock. This can be any flavorful liquid. Ugh. Took this right out the freezer, as you can see. And a nice pinch of kosher, maybe 2. A lot of stuff to season in there. And I'm just gonna top it off with a little bit of water just to kind of make sure the beans are topped off right to about a little above their shoulder. Very important ingredient, almost forgot it, is just a little bit of duck fat, or a lot bit. That's gonna go creamy into the beans, add that classic cassoulet duck flavor. Remember, this dish comes from a region of France known for its duck. Duck fat, important in the beans. I just wanna play with beans on camera. That's why I got into this line of work. We're gonna skim some of this scum off. Skim the foam, try not to get any of those spices or anything. You might get a bean or a spice, and that's okay. Do your best. All right, so now we'll let this simmer off. It's gonna take a few hours. Just watch them, check the beans, mush them in your hand, taste one. You want them nice and creamy. Pop this on the back burner, move on to the next one. Duck legs. We got to talk about a very important component of cassoulet, the duck confit. Here we have some beautiful, beautiful Hudson Valley duck legs here that I just went ahead and trimmed up a little bit. So you can see here, I salted these yesterday and let them dry out in the fridge in a wire rack. So confit is actually a very, very, very old preservation technique and cooking technique. Peasants without a lot of money would usually purchase a larger offcut of meat, cook it low and slow in its own fat until it's super tender and delicious. And then once you let that fat solidify, it actually acts as a barrier against bad bacteria from getting in. So you'd store it down under in your root cellar and you'd be good. You could eat meat throughout the winter. It stayed just cold enough where it wouldn't freeze, but it also would preserve the meat. An additional thing that a lot of people would do is they would cure their meats too. So they would use curing salts or saltpeter to make sure that meat is kind of like chemically stable and won't go bad. Now, these days we don't use the confit cooking technique for preservation. We use it because it tastes delicious and for flavor. So using curing salts isn't necessary. Some places do it just for like that sort of classic flavor, I guess, but I don't think we need to. Just gonna lay in the ducky legs. We're gonna add in some garlic, fresh thyme, a bay leaf, and I'm just gonna go in with some strips of orange here. Plays really nice with the duck. Ugh. Here's my vat of duck fat from our wonderful guys over at Hudson Valley Foie Gras, Hudson Valley Farms. Not sponsored, but they make amazing products. This duck fat's some of the best I've had. And look at this, just like midnight snack. Grab a spoon when your boxers, walk into the fridge, open it up, take some of that out, start mucking it. Your wife immediately calls the cops. You go through a long divorce, you lose your kids. Worth it, it's that good. We're just gonna melt some of this down here. Duck fat can be pricey. You can get this at a lot of like nicer grocery stores, right? So if you maybe have a little bit of duck fat and you wanna use a little bit of oil, if you have duck fat and you have lard or even manteca could work, 50-50, 25-75. The duck fat does impart a certain flavor that is authentic and that I really do enjoy. And if you can get all duck fat, do it. But you know, you can totally go other ways with it as well. Then we must cover everything with the duck fat. So this is going to go into a super low oven for a few hours until the ducky is perfectly tender. All right, so this is what it looks like when the beans are finished cooking. If you're a wild man and plan on cooking the cassoulet in one day, you can totally just use the beans now. However, I prefer to let them rest and reabsorb some of the cooking liquid overnight. In my experience, just like a braise, beans left overnight in the fridge are more flavorful. Now for the duck confit, same thing. Use them immediately or let them cool in the fridge overnight. The fat will solidify and act as a barrier, keeping them supremely fresh and succulent. I make the confit in advance mostly for convenience, not because they continue to develop flavor. This goes with all confit in general. Remember, this is a preservation technique, so the meat is going to stay fresh for a long time in the fridge if it's covered fully. Ooh. Day 2. We have our wonderful beans here. The beans have been sitting in their own cooking juices, absorbing that flavor, reabsorbing that flavor. Now we just got to remove all the stuff inside. So we're just going to remove all pretty much these aromatics here. Kind of try to scrape all the beans off everything. Some of this like onion matter and of course the tomato, you know, it's so soft, it just breaks apart. And that's actually kind of nice because what I like to do is remove everything but the tomatoes here and just kind of hand mash them into the beans. And when we warm this all back up, these tomatoes are gonna just kind of like flow into the beans and just kind of become a part of everything here, which is important because that tomato flavor is very necessary kind of in my cassoulet. Adds a nice umami. There's just something about manhandling cold beans that makes me feel alive. Yeah. Cut that out, that was weird. Believe it or not, this dish takes more meat products, specifically pork products. So here we have some spare ribs that I went ahead and cut off the rack. I like them on the bone because, I don't know, it's just kind of some variation in your cassoulet. You get a little rib, it's perfectly tender, almost like, it's like so succulent. I like spare ribs because they're fattier than baby back. Then we got this. Pick this up from my butcher, Publican. Shout out Publican Quality Meats. These are Toulouse sausages. They come from Toulouse, France. They are a pork sausage and very, very tasty. Nutmeg, a bunch of other stuff in there. If you want to be a psychopath like me, I actually made these from scratch in my last cassoulet video a few years back. So if you don't have access to them, you can follow that recipe, but we're already doing a ton of work here, so I went ahead and just picked up some really high quality Toulouse sausages, but these can also be any other pork sausage. Hell, you could even use a brat if you want, right? Just, don't let not being able to find Toulouse sausages stop you from making this cassoulet. We're gonna dip into our vat of duck fat. Then we're gonna pop in our pork ribs, our sausages, then just some thyme and a bay leaf, a pinch of kosher, and some cracked black pea. All right, I'm gonna give these a flip here. We really wanna put color on these because they're not gonna be able to get color in any other way. Got some nice color on that sausage there. We're gonna take those off. They don't have to be fully cooked, we just want them colored. All right, so we have all of the meat going into the cassoulet here. You can see it nice and cleanly. We have our pork belly that's all ready to go pretty much. Our seared pork ribs that need a little more cooking, but they will get that. The Toulouse sausage, nice and colored. And then our pork ham hock, smoked. Now we're just gonna cut this up so that it fits in the cassoulet nicely. So for the pork belly, I like to do little like square pieces. You can cut this however you want. Some people like to do like strips, kind of like bacon. For the ham hock here, there's a lot of skin, and look how we simmered that for so long with the beans. It should be just super tender and easy to work with here. So I like to take this meat off here and just shred it. So you have a couple different consistencies going here. You got some shredded meat, you got some cubed pork belly, wonderful, ham hock. This is all just skin that's already released. It's collagen that's turned into gelatin in our beans. I like to use a little bit of it, not a lot of it. A lot of people leave the sausage whole in their cassoulet. What I like to do is have them set 3 aside, and with the other 3, we're just gonna cut nice little rounds. So we have our sausage rounds, and then we have the whole sausages, and I'll show you why I do that when we build. Here are our meats. Shredded, cubed, rounded, whole, and then of course our whole ribs as well. At this point, there's a couple more things to do, but we're ready to build. We gotta talk about the cassoulet, right? This is traditionally what cassoulet is cooked in. This is a earthenware or terracotta bowl that we're gonna build the cassoulet in and bake it, right? So these are kind of tough to come by in the States. In France, you'll see cassoulet cooked in sort of terracotta, earthenware, stuff like this. A Dutch oven totally works. I've done this in a Dutch oven. It makes a beautiful cassoulet. You don't need this. I had this shipped in from like a French flea market for way too much guala than I should be paying for something made of terracotta, but it's beautiful. It serves as a cooking device and serving device. As long as you have something that's wide and deep, you're gonna be fine. First things first, we're gonna smear this with some duck fat. That's gonna help things crisp up. Cool little trick I picked up, haven't done this so many times. Now we're gonna start layering in the meats. Pork belly, the shredded ham hock, some of that skin, the ribbitry, our rounded Toulouse sausage, not the little ones we kept whole. We'll give that a nice little toss. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, we have our beans that I re-warmed here. So I'm gonna use a slotted spoon and take some of these beans out here. So now we're gonna start layering in the beanage. So I'm gonna fill this kind of pretty much almost to the top here, smooth it out on top. Now that we have our beans kind of loaded in, covered so you can't see any of that meat, I'm just gonna use a plate or something similar, and we're just gonna fill the beans up just to their shoulders, right, till the liquid comes to the top. That viscous, beautiful cooking liquid. Beautiful. We want that moisture on our beans. It's gonna slowly evaporate, leaving us with a beautiful crust on the beans. And once we get to this stage, I'm just gonna take those sausages that we kept whole and just kinda nuzzle them in. This is what the cassoulet should look like before it's baked here. We got the liquid right to the brim, everything's packed in and loaded. All we need to do is cook this. Now the cooking component of the cassoulet does take time. We're gonna put it in a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. Things are gonna start to evaporate a little bit, the beans are gonna dry out, then we're gonna go in every 30 minutes, take the back of our spoon and kind of crack that top layer, rehydrate those beans, kind of continue to, again, rehydrate the beans so that they don't burn, but also that crust forms. The crust is very important. There's a lot of rich, kind of soft textures in here with that crust and that textural variation. It's kind of, to me, like what makes a good cassoulet. I could fall asleep right in here and get 3rd-degree burns, but I won't. So we push down our final crust. We're gonna move that aside and reach for the Duck Confit that we made yesterday. This part's a lot of fun here. Just kind of dig the confit out from its fat and wipe it off as best you can. You're not going to get all of the fat, and that's okay. The excess fat's just going to help the confit crisp up atop the cassoulet as it cooks during its final round in the oven. Wipe it off nice and good lack, and try to remove any offensive globules, which is now a word. So this is all going back in the oven at 400 degrees for another 20 to 30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. When the duck crisps up, you're pretty much ready to rook. Le cassoulet. Peer deeply into my bean pot. Look how beautiful that is. That crusty bean layer has formed. Our confit is crisped up. Look at that. The fat's rendered, the skin is crispy, but it's oh so gooey on there. I'm gonna give this a scoop and see what we got underneath the hood. Oh yeah. Oh. Saucy beans, ooey gooey fatty meats, little potatoes worked in the mix, maybe a sausage or two, some duck confit. And all that sauce is kind of like still at the bottom too. So when you serve this, make sure to give everybody a little bit of every type of meat, some crust at the top, and some of those saucy beans that tend to be at the bottom. And then of course, if you have enough, a whole thing of duck confit. But let me show you how I'd serve this thing. Look at that. Sacre bleu. I feel like this is a very sporkable meal. You gotta scoop and you gotta stab. Technology right there. I think this is French technology. All right, so this is how I would serve cassoulet. We'll start down the line here. Again, meat, beans, rich, heavy, punch you in the face with flavor, the cassoulet. So we need to serve this with a salad. I like an endive salad or an escarole salad just because it's a little bitter, and then a little sharp vinaigrette on there. That can also just be olive oil and vinegar with a little bit of salt and pep. But something to kind of balance it and wake it out to kind of like, you know, wake you up between bites, because that's a lot, very rich. You don't want to get, flavor fatigue when you're eating it. Then to serve with this, you need a big bodied red that can stand up to the richness of the cassoulet. So I actually went ahead and ordered the exact same wine that we had at La Tupina, the restaurant where I had the cassoulet that I really liked. This is a 2021, I think it was 2019, the one that we had, but you know, same-ish thing, right? The bouquet, superb. I love French wine, dude. It's like so dry and like farmhouse barnyard. I just want to, it's like no sweetness at all to it. Delish. So yeah, let's dig into this thing. We got some crusty beans here. Ooh, 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 ooh. Some of that ham hock hanging off there. I might just be crazy, be a crazy wild child and just go like this. Sacre bleu! And check this out, this is the duck confit here. So I like keeping it like this because I think it looks beautiful. It's a great little thing to put on as a presentation piece, but what I would do probably is shred this thing up and put it in the cassoulet so it's easier to eat. But check this out. You got that crispy skin, all that meat underneath here, that dark meat, right? Look how that just pulls apart, shreds apart. You can just take a fork or even a spoon, or a spork in our case, and just shred all that off. So you have this like incredible crispy duck skin with this gooey like duck meat that's like shreddy and braisy. So classic, so rich, which brings me to the last point. Now this is something I picked up in France, but you can serve this with vinegar, right? Almost as a condiment like you would with fish and chips malt vinegar, right? Everything is so rich that the vinegar helps wake everything up. So when I eat the cassoulet, I'll usually do like a tiny little stream like that of vinegar, maybe kind of mix it around a bit. And you can see here, all that sauce at the bottom, those saucy beans too. So it is moist and it is crispy still. that's just perfection. Is it a lot of work? Yes, but if you divide it up by a couple of days, it's not so bad, and I really urge you to try this out because it's one of my favorite dishes and I think you're gonna like it too. Thank you for coming on this multi-day cooking journey with me, all about the cassoulet. Hope you guys liked the video. Remember, if you like the video, helps us out. If you're new to the channel, can you consider subscribing to the channel? We'd love to have you. If you're not new to the channel, Witt, welcome back. Best way to support the channel is over on the Patreon, aka the grocery fund, right? But if you cannot financially support, no worries. Come say what up in Discord. We're cooling, we're chatting. We got a cool little community over there, always chatting and showing pictures of what we're cooking. I also do cool giveaways. For example, I'm giving away some tarbay beans. These tarbay beans, right? Not the easiest to come by. The same beans we used in this video. It's just one of the many things that you can win in some of the giveaways there. And all you have to do is post a picture of your favorite dish depending on what I ask of you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next we meet, au revoir.